the thing about LA that is like difficult and bewildering is it does have galleries where people go like, can I purchase this piece for $15,000? And then the gallerist is like, no, because you're not the right person.
I know.
Your money's no good here.
Wow.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? Like there's tons of that happens all the time. And I'm not in that. Like that's not relevant to me specifically, but like that's here. And then, you know, there's just all the different like tiers and types of spaces that exist here. And I like really struggled to figure out like where do I fit?
What is your customer base like? They seem nice.
No, they're cool. Or most of them are cool.
Most of them, nicely said.
It's true. I mean, recently, I would say in the last few years, I've been working with a lot of dealers and collectors of mid-century modern pottery.
Oh, those types.
Well, I mean, that's who a
TikTok
major
is having such a backlash to mid-century modern.
Fair enough.
I don't mind it, but it is a generational thing.
You know, I think okay. There's a lot of beautiful stuff from that era, and then but then sometimes it just starts feeling really boring. Like the more of it you see, and I mean, I'm not obviously not a minimalist, and I think some of that design is like so minimal and like refined down and down and down that I feel tired, or I just want, I don't know, I like to be in a place with a bunch of crap in it.
Oh, is that where you feel more comfortable?
Would you guess that I might feel comfortable in a place?
I don't know. I mean, my apartment's a mess, but that doesn't make me feel good.
And okay, I think mess is the wrong word. I think like you can have a lot of stuff in a semi-curated manner. I mean, I just want to know where people like.
But now we just heard that thing fall, and we don't know what it is.
It's okay. It's probably just Lesha. What's
Lesha?
Lesha.
Oh, there's another artist.
Yeah, studio mate. She's in here rifling around, or I don't know. Maybe it's the ants. But
let me ask you something since you listen to the show.
Okay.
And I don't mean to make this a crit of my show, but I might be asking you since you're on your way out. What do you think of the intro? Should I keep it or should I ditch it? Does it slow it down at the beginning? I kind
of liked. I mean, so the first one I listened to with the intro was Emily's.
Oh no, I don't mean the music. I just mean the welcome to what's my thesis and all that stuff. Because I'm feeling like maybe that's slowing down the YouTube views.
Oh, maybe. It will probably slow down the YouTube views. I'm so used to it, like just as a listener of things and a non-watcher, that it doesn't bother me at all.
So I should still do it for the audio.
But probably. I could see it. I think it's nice for the audio. Or I just like to get oriented. I'm like, oh, now I'm oriented in my podcast because they all do. All the ones I listen to are produced and have intros.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't listen to any of the ones that are like 4 hours long and people are just like rattling about shit.
I know who you're talking about now. I accidentally triggered you earlier by making a Joe Rogan joke. I'm fine with him, but I totally understand that he's a very polarizing person.
I just think he's stupid.
That's fine. I'm sure he wouldn't argue with you.
As just a human person. I just don't think he's smart enough to have the platform that he has. It bothers me. I
am okay with you thinking that. I'm okay with it bothering you. I would say that why does he have that platform then?
Okay, so like here's the thing: is I also don't think that every smart person should have a podcast, like or have a platform. It's kind of just as bad to have somebody that's like ultra pretentious because they're super smart, like having a massive platform. But with him, he can't. If somebody's saying something stupid to him, he doesn't know how to stop them because he's not smart enough to be like, this is stupid.
Have you ever watched the show?
No.
Okay. No, I'm not going to argue with you.
No.
My point is not, my interest is not in convincing you that Joe Rogan is okay. I'm not at all invested in that.
I've just literally, like, I've had a problem with him since Fear Factor. I just have never liked him as a person, and I never will.
There are some people that just trigger me too, and I don't really know why. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, you have to be kind to everyone. What interests me about what you said, and have I done the intro yet? No. Okay, we'll get to it. What interests me about is the terminology of platform, and that to me is a fascinating concept, because it's this idea, like, then what you're getting into is a place where, I mean, he is like fucking #1 in the world. There's nothing that comes close to his show,
and that's my whole problem.
No, that's fine to be upset about that, but the idea of it being a platform in the traditional sense, I think, is what's triggering to people, like, where it's like, it's just this guy who's suddenly powerful, as opposed to a guy that's like super powerful buying an institution like the Washington Post. You know, like, I'm not at all stabbing at your
your
thing.
I find that equally disturbing.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm not arguing your taste, your distaste for him. I'm interested in the idea of the platform.
And I mean, I think
as someone who's trying to self-platform.
Well, honestly, if he was just like some dude who had a YouTube channel and he got, I don't even know, like, even 1 million or so views on things.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah.
But it's that he's now, it's like he's gained so much power and like recognition, and people seemed so enchanted with him. Like, if he could just be left alone a little bit more,
yeah,
fine. I mean, I don't care if people with dumb ideas like to.
Well, I'm super dumb, so I can. I just told you about a piece that I loved that I did, and you talked about how someone tried to do the piece in real life, which is I had a piece. I mean, I'm still gonna do it, but I'd never documented it. Unfortunately, I guess I'm doing it now. But it's like a big fan with a little fan blowing into it, with a smaller fan blowing into it. Because I don't know if you can hear in the background, we're only surviving. There's literally no way that my sound engineering desire to have a clean taping is going to stop me from having these fucking fans on.
It's okay. There's just a low-key white noise in the background, and it's fine because according to my wolf thermometer, it is 90 degrees in here.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I'm serious.
And a wolf thermometer is not a technical thermometer. I'm not even looking at it. I just know where I'm at. It's a thermometer that has some wolf theme.
It has a photo of wolves. It's one of those circular garden thermometers. Like you'd see, usually they have like hot air balloons on them or something. This one depicts a photo of 2 wolves looking into the distance. Into the distance.
Oh, I thought it would be more romantic.
It's round like a clock. And so sometimes people come in here and then they're like 60 o'clock, and I'm like, it's not the time.
Yeah, I find that it's interesting, the idea of just in general, the idea of platforming. As I promised, this will become a critique of my podcast because I know you've listened to it. But okay, let me do the intro.
Okay.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. Oh wait, no, hold on. This is my note to myself. I need to do a bigger one. Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Javier Proenza. Every week, my guests and I share the answers we found to the questions we have. Join us as we explore and expand our worldview and ask, what's my thesis? And I'm also looking into the camera now. Do you see that?
Very good.
Yeah, you're from the Zoom days.
Yes, it was from the Zoom days.
I mean, you've been friends with me since before the Zoom days, so I don't want to like take your credit away. But yeah, so we are also meeting impromptu and in a rush because you've broken a lot of people's hearts by departing. I have my own anxieties about it. We can get into them. I don't disapprove, but I disapprove.
Fair enough.
Now you're allowed to be happy and not consider me in your life choices. I just want you to know they affect me. Now, we kind of had an idea that this was sort of happening for a while, right?
Yeah.
And you're leaving. The thing is, you're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to move to Seattle. I'm going to get out of LA. The sun is burning me.
Yeah. Now's a good time to fucking get that vibe.
I mean, really, like, stuff's going to catch on fire soon, like any minute.
Yeah.
Because it's almost fire season. And I'm excited to go to a place that has not fire season.
Now you're just bumming me out about staying.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. First thoughts first. Like, what are your thoughts on, like, because you're obviously been here. How long have you been here?
I have been here a little over 8 years. Actually, I guess 9 years. It would be 9 years in December. So I'm like 8.5.
So do you have any anxiety? I mean, I know you have like a big Instagram following and you are somewhat known, but do you have a network in Seattle?
No, I mean, I know a few people there. So actually someone from LA that I know just opened a gallery there recently. And then Sean from Track 16, who I work with now, he also knows some people up there. And then I actually have a friend from Austin that I didn't realize was living in that area now, but is up there. Mm-hmm. And so I'll have a little, like, I have a place to start, I guess, as far as like meeting people and things. And now I've kind of gotten to the point, I mean, like, my Instagram following is not that big, but it's been big enough that a lot of times I can meet somebody and I'm like, oh, we're already connected. We might already follow each other, or
I remember what that was like.
Yeah. Or we're already connected, or like, you know of me from this or that or whatever. Because even if people don't follow me, they might have seen me. Like, a lot of people follow Jealous Curator, which I've been on a couple times, or Colossal, like those sites. And so they'll have seen my work.
So Jealous Curator is a site and a podcast?
So she is, yeah. So she has a podcast, and then she has I mean, I'm like, it sounds weird to say blog.
Okay.
But it started out as just this blog, like back in, 2000? No, wait, what era am I in? 2005 or 7 or something like that. Like a long time ago. It was just a blog where she would post an artist every day whose work she loved. And it started just out as this thing where she was a designer. And she was really interested in art, but didn't make her own art. And so she started this thing called the Jealous Curator, which is, I'm jealous of this person because I think their work is so cool. And I don't even know how she found me, because it was kind of pre-social media. And I didn't know anything about her. And it was, I think, back in 2007 or 2008. And so she posted me there, and then we met, and I was on her podcast like years ago now. But she's, it's kind of one of those things where people who, like, the work she posts is, there's like a big variety. A lot of it's design oriented. And
yeah, she's got a lot of that.
Yeah. And the people, I think that her audience is people who are just like interested in the arts, but don't necessarily have like a regular act. Like, they're not going to be going out to art galleries. And I think another thing about
the people who are not my audience.
Well, I think the other thing about her,
this is like the most inside baseball.
I mean, she also, like, there definitely are a lot of artists that follow her and are interested, but I feel like the kind of work she chooses, she's good at grabbing people who aren't necessarily going to be like gallery people, or a lot of the art she chooses is things that are accessible and not a lot of heady stuff. So I think that's nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, I guess back to the question. I'm kind of looking to, I mean, I don't know. I guess I worry occasionally about leaving LA. But I think what's worried me about leaving more than, I don't know, I'm not really worried I'm going to become irrelevant. It seems weird, like we're the same age. We're over 40. And
we're relevant.
but I feel a little bit like I'm like older now. And before, like, when I moved to LA, I was, 30 something. Or like when I moved to Austin and I was like 25. And now I'm like, it gets interesting to get into a community as somebody that's in their 40s instead of being somebody in their 20s or even in their like younger 30s.
And why is that? Is it because people think that you might be a predator?
Definitely that. No, I think it's also just like I know so much more now. And I also know, I mean, I've always been a person who has like done lots of like labors of love for art.
Yeah.
Or for, for my own art, for other people's art, for just the idea of doing a stupid project, just lots of like work for free or whatever. It's not even like not in a mean work for free type of way, but
not
just,
exploitation.
Yeah,
not
no,
for exposure, but
like
for love.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a line in a Talking Heads song. It's like never for money, always for love.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, yeah, that's because that's really like I guess for me, the pursuit of art, being an artist, being artistic is to just do like stupid nonsense things with people that you think are cool.
Yeah.
But I think like doing all that stuff has been like great and wonderful and I've loved it so much, but now I'm also at a point where I'm like worn down.
Yeah.
And so I have a limit on, there was a point in my life where if anybody asked me to do anything, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that thing. And now I'm like, so I don't quite have I don't have the energy of somebody who's 28.
I don't either.
I have to go to bed.
No, that's what I was thinking. Like when you were bringing that up, I was like, where is she going with this? Because it sounds like she's saying that it might be harder as an adult to like, because when you're a kid, everybody's trying, at our age, everyone's married and is a homebody, right? You know, so what are you going to do?
I mean, but I think that, I don't know. I think that I can still...
Art is the unifying thing?
Yeah, like I think art is the unifying thing. Like I think it'll still be feasible to like make connections and friends and things like that. But I think that I'm going to try to kind of have like a more limited involvement, or like... You're
not going to stay as our director and direct from far away?
I will for a little bit while you guys get it figured out. I take Carl Barada, the lovely Carl, told me you just have to duct tape the canoe together, because once you put enough duct tape on the canoe, it just floats.
Oh, that's how you're gonna leave us?
Yeah. Well, I've been duct taping the canoe. The canoe is almost fully duct taped.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave you guys.
How many members do we have now? This is Monte Vista for 12. People that don't know.
Yeah.
Monte Vista Projects.
Monte Vista Projects has, I think, 12 members now.
12 members.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like, whatever, you guys will be fine. And also the nature of the collective is that the collective changes.
And that is not your collective.
Yeah, no. And I think that's the thing about, being a part of Monte Vista that's been so nice, is that it is really, like, it's non-hierarchical. It's nobody's.
Yeah, right. I'm just depend on you like for everything. What are you talking about? No, I get what you're saying.
But you don't have to. And I mean, that's sort
I
of
like CC you on every fucking time I reach out to another member.
But I think that's also like the interesting thing about like the way these things form, like or being, I guess. For me, there's been just like in my whatever, like growing up as an artist, a lot of me realizing that like, I'll lead something. And I was not like a kid who was like, I want to be the president of this. So I'd be like, get away from me. I'm reading a book. Stop. Don't talk to me. Also, I was very shy. So I was also like, please also don't look at me. You're one of you. I can relate to that because I don't get that. It's hard to imagine you as being shy, but I think a lot of people feel that way about me too. But I was also very shy, and people thought I didn't like them just because I was terrified of them. Yeah, no, I was very. I mean, it's funny because I think with growing up like with my parents and stuff, I could be really argumentative. I mean, not just like regular kid parent stuff. Like my dad and I really liked to debate, debate style argue. Like, but it was in good fun, or yeah, in good fun. We used to do it at dinner all the time, but it would make my mom really mad because she didn't like the sound of raised voices. And I'm like, we're just having a discussion, and she was like, both of you have to shut up, just because she was like the noise level was too much for her. But like in school, I just like wanted to read and draw and not talk to anyone. And I was terrified of like public speaking and all that stuff. Finally, at some point in college, I was like, oh, literally no one cares. Like no one, I mean, at the level that we're at with
no
our
one cares
audience,
about what?
No one cares how stupid you think you look. Nobody cares. Like there's just, I think I used to think like everyone is scrutinizing me.
Okay.
And no one is. And
no, they're scrutinizing themselves. I had that realization.
And like if you don't, you know, if you're trying to, like if you have to get up in front of a class and do a presentation and you don't remember what you're going to say, that's okay. Just be like, whoops, hold on a second. Or, you know, we'll have to figure that out later, or I'll email the class at the end, you know, and it's not a huge deal. I also had like an instance where I was supposed to do I don't know, I was in some class where we had to do a bunch of like public speaking type stuff. And I did a presentation one time that I was not prepared for, but it went really well. And then I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
You know, like this was actually fine. I don't need to have nerves.
Were you the type to want to go first and get it out of the way in the class lineup, or last and torture yourself?
I guess or like by the time I got to college, the thing I hate more than anything is when you're in a classroom situation and the instructor's like, who wants to go first? And no one will go. Those minutes or seconds or however long it is of everyone just like sitting there drives me insane. And so I'm like,
how long have you been out of college?
Forever.
You're so passionate about this memory.
It's not just that memory. It's also because like occasionally in LA, I've done like I worked at a place that did professional development classes. And so I was I forget what my title was, but basically like I would have to sit in the back of the room while someone is, you know, talking about like business taxes or whatever to a group, and then they're asking the people in the room like for feedback or whatever, and no one is saying anything. And even then, like I'm not supposed to say anything because it's just my job to like monitor the class. Just be like, I know
you scaredy cats.
Well, and you know everybody has questions because everybody has questions about how to do their business taxes because nobody knows what's going on. And I'm like, I know someone just please say your questions.
Oh my God, you fucked up so bad right now. You just told me you know how to do business taxes.
I know a little bit about business taxes.
Yeah, you know more than me. You're so fucked now. You done fucked up, Debora.
Let's do a really boring podcast.
No, not about that. No, I just mean in general in my life. I'm going to be like, hey, how do I keep this podcast?
I mean, honestly, I'm actually happy to like answer questions about what I know, but I'm also like, I'm not an accountant. So my advice is not necessarily, I'm like, it's legal. Things you could do, but maybe some of them you shouldn't.
Yeah. So, all right. Well then, okay. So you've been in LA for 8 years and you're leaving now. There's a couple of things I want to ask you. I kind of want to ask you about the art world, the art scene, how you see it here. I also want to ask you about like your podcast selection of art podcasts that you listen to, because you're like literally the only person I know who listens to art podcasts, like literally, which is why I guess you're also one of the few people that listens to mine that I know regularly. Like, I mean, I'm teasing, but okay. You said there were different categories of this is a business meeting right now. What categories of art podcasts do you listen to? You said you listen to career ones. You said you listen to ones about artists talking about their work.
Yeah, so there's a couple. So there's the I Like Your Work podcast, and that
one seems to have blown up. I remember when they were not like anything.
Yeah, so there's that one, and she does like a kind of combo thing. So she'll do a thing where sometimes the episodes are her interviewing an artist about like their practice and all that stuff, and then there's other kind of like interstitial episodes where they're about, you know, social media, like figuring out your social media or doing your taxes or whatever. So how
many episodes a week does she come out with?
I think it's actually just once a week or once every 2 weeks. It's not that much, but I don't listen to them all the time. And so when I'm in the mood, so normally, I mean, the deal is,
you're not required to shit on other podcasts to make me feel better.
I'm just saying. Well, the deal is with me, since I'm in the studio either doing like restoration work or artwork, essentially like full time, or more depending. And I can't listen to music when I'm doing my work because it affects my painting style for restoration.
You got like rhythms going and you're like, bounce, bounce.
It's not that extreme, but it kind of like it will, or it'll affect my mood. And I can't listen to music.
I love that I just assumed you were listening to boom bap rap.
And so, yeah.
Like, dad rap from my era.
And so I listen to podcasts. And but I don't listen to art podcasts all the time. There's just certain times where I'll be like, okay, I'm going to, I need a palate cleanser or somebody I know is on this podcast.
You're like, okay, Javier invited one of my friends on.
Yeah, I'm listening to my friend. Or like sometimes the topics are interesting to me. Or like, let's see, Michael Shaw's podcast, which is called the Art Conversation Podcast.
Yeah.
I listen to that occasionally.
I've heard from somebody that we both know that they are, or one of the feedbacks that I've received about my show is that they like that I'm not as aggressive as he is when I disagree with somebody.
Like his podcast is interesting because sometimes like he really wants to know things sometimes. And I think sometimes people don't want to tell him, but he just is really trying to, because I think a lot of, I cannot speak for him. We do not know each other, but I get the feeling that like a lot of what he wants to know, which I also want to know, is how are people staying alive that are artists? It's like, where do you get your money?
Yeah.
And like for real, how you get your money.
Yeah,
and
but
a lot of people,
that's gauche as fuck.
Yeah, people don't want to answer that question, which is totally fair. And
that's also really hostile, though.
Well, he doesn't say like, "How do you get your money?"
Yeah,
but he'll just be like, but he's genuinely curious. I'm genuinely curious. I would love to know.
Yeah.
How people.
I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna be like all of my guests and be like, no one's gonna be happy with the answer.
Well, I think that kind of is the
subtext there, right?
Right,
yeah.
and it's a hard question to answer, and I think also because everybody, no matter. And
I've never listened to the show. I have no personal beef. I'm just reacting to what you're saying, so I don't know what his actual. I don't want to start our podcast wars.
He seems cool. I like his podcast, and I like this is not. It's not a dig at all. I just think it's interesting because sometimes like I can.
Well, it's interesting because the way that I heard about it, the only time I really disagree with people is not about, it's just about politics, right?
Right.
So that's what I understood. So that actually gives me some more clarity as to like what they were talking about.
Right. It can be a little bit more, or someone will tell a story and they won't want to name the person and he'll kind of try to figure out like who it is. And, and then like that's fine because we all want to know because we like the gossip. But I do listen to him sometimes. There's another one called what's it called? Like Art Juice or something like that. That's all about business that I'll listen to occasionally, or arts business.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if that's the same one or there's another one that has like these two, I think they're English women on it. And they talk a lot about, just, like keeping up with making your work or like trying something new and like success or failure or things like that. And I think those are useful to listen to, but it's all just sort of like this background of me working myself.
Unless you're listening to my show.
Right. Which I fully listen to. I drop everything. I'm just like, what's my thesis is on? I'm going to fully listen.
Yeah.
Actually, but hilariously, I can't do that at all because if I am not doing something with my hands and I just start listening, I'll space out completely. Yeah. And then I have to and I just stop hearing.
There's something to that, especially as someone with ADD, the ADHD, like the fidgeting helps. Like, that's why you see, people doodling and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like there's something to that in business meetings. And then your manager's like, shut up, stop. And you're like, no, but I'm listening.
I had a huge thing in high school with, a teacher, because like they would, I don't know why they even still do this in high school, but we had to like read Macbeth aloud in the class. Mm. And I literally, like I just told you, if somebody's just like, just listen and don't do anything, my brain just like goes into space.
Yeah.
And I stop hearing completely and I don't know what happened. But if I'm moving my hand, I'll be able to like pay attention, essentially.
What kind of artist does I Like Your Work? Because that's actually one that I saw grow. Like, and I'm just trying to figure that out. I know that I mean, you know, for whatever reason, I'm actually right now at lower listenership than I've ever been, and I think obviously it's because I've taken time off from time to time, but I'm just trying to like curiously trying to figure out how to do this in a way that is more appealing to people. So basically what I'm trying to do right now, especially with the new setup that we're doing, right, is going to and we're in the critique part of the podcast. You know, it's my objective is to go into like artist spaces and in LA and just kind of document maybe in a like the artist run scene, as opposed to, not that I don't have not that I have a problem with like interviewing Mark Bradford or anybody that big, you know, but realistically, but I mean, first of all, is that of interest at all to anyone?
I mean, you know, I think so. Or I think it would all depend on like, you know, what the content of the interview was, I think.
Yeah.
I've actually seen Mark Bradford speak before, and it was really interesting.
Yeah.
The one actually that I remember one thing out of it. And the one thing was like, it was a question. He did a Q&A at the end, and somebody was basically like, how do I make it as an artist? And he was just like, I don't know. You just have to like do whatever you need to do. He's like, maybe you have to figure out how to do it yourself and do it yourself completely, and find your 5 friends who can all pay, you know, X amount of dollars so you can run your own gallery and like that kind of thing. It was very like, just, you have to do it yourself. Like, no,
obviously you have to do it to figure out if there's if there's an audience for it. But no, I mean, but I'm just like watching, like, I think it's interesting to me, the idea of a show that it's interesting to me that in the same time frame that I've been doing the show, some shows have really taken off, right? And I think that they have a little bit of a broader appeal.
I think with the I Like Your Work podcast, so just like with me having like kind of limited knowledge of what's going on with that, but I think that what I've noticed is their social media is really strong. Like, they have a very
regular thing.
Yeah, it's very like, it comes out regularly. There's regular social media posts. She also does like some kind of like open call where people can kind of submit themselves as artists, and she'll like, I feel like she has I don't know if it's a newsletter or something where she'll feature different people, like go do a studio visit with somebody and feature that. So she has all these little like little threads that are out there that aren't just about podcasting, because I'm sure there's people who know about that probably don't listen
to it. Yeah, well, that's how this show is.
Yeah, they're just after like newsletters and social media content type of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. In terms of just like documenting the art world. Well, what do you think is interesting about the art world? Like okay, based on this framework that I presented, the idea, like, what is it, as somebody that is active in the art world and knows a lot about it? Well, like, and since I'm interviewing your friends, like, what are things that you think are interesting to people? Because basically, like, the kind of where I'm at is just, there's a whole culture of people that, you know, don't make it in the art world, but they're still artists.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of like what I'm interested in. And I think that's a pretty fucking big community. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's a ton of people who, you know, will still make things and may make things forever and will never have like quote unquote made it. Yeah. And then there's also people who have like had really big shows and stuff like that where they did, you know, they had a big show and maybe they still make work and maybe they're still selling work, but it's just like at this scale that's still like under, you know, they're not at like Gagosian or whatever. Yeah.
And I think that there's definitely, well, I mean, just working class artists, you know, is what's interesting to me, because it's like it is that thing where it's not necessarily a choice for a lot of people. Like the idea that you have to kind of do this, even though it's not necessarily making you bigger. But like, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I find interesting is just like how shockingly easy it is to build a relationship with a space like Monte Vista, you know, which, having done it myself and then having talked to a lot of people who were just like, oh yeah, like, you know, I just went.
Right. I think, I mean, there's sort of like this interesting thing that I've seen over time, just in the art world in Austin and the art world here, is you kind of like, artists themselves will think there's a barrier to entry for certain, and there definitely hugely is a barrier to entry for a lot of places. But there's all these other places where there is a very small or no essentially barrier to entry. Or if you just want to, I mean, like the way at Monte Vista, let's see, in 2019 was the first year we did the open call, and we, curated a showdown from that. And that's how we met Christine Atkinson, who's a member now. And we met her because, we curated her piece into the show and we all really liked the piece, but she came to the opening and she brought wine and we didn't ask her.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, like, that's not like we let her in Monte Vista because she brought wine. I mean, that's...
No.
But it was also 2 years, 3 years, 2, 3, 4 maybe years later that she became a member of Monte Vista. But we all remembered her because we were like, you were so friendly and you really wanted to like help.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes there's a lot of places and spaces that need people who will help.
Yeah.
And are interested in helping and are not like going to be, hoarders of whatever it is they know.
And that is an interesting thing because there is a, because I know that when I first moved to LA, it was during the economic downturn, the last one. and I did a lot of free work for people, but for companies. And those relationships never really worked out because they felt like some level of guilt, Whereas in this space, like free work is everyone's doing it, right? Like there's no hierarchy where some person is making money at Monte Vista and everybody else is just serving to help that person, right?
Right. And so I think that's like, the nature of these
it's
types.
It's a collaborative volunteer effort as opposed to like an exploitative volunteer effort.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's that's like, and that's one of the lovely things about the art world is that there is all these places where and even if you're a person, you're like, I don't know what I have to offer. I mean, a lot of times people just need like humans to exist and like to be there.
Yeah.
Or, seeing somebody, like if you're a person that works in a space or helps run a space and you start seeing someone that comes to all your openings and does try to, I mean, they don't have to come to all of them, but comes to openings frequently and they like hang around and like try to say hello and like be interested. And also just people coming in and not being like, I want something from you. Instead being like, hey, how can I help or how can I be a part of this thing? And I
think what it is that there's definitely a vibe at Monte Vista, and if you come in and you like, which is how I feel like I got in, is if you come in and you are contributing to the vibe, while also receiving something from it. Like I think, because I remember I literally told Rakim one time, we play video games every now and then, like once every year sometimes, but we'll get together. I mean, we haven't done it in a while, but and I remember when I got in, I was like, oh, dude, I was going to ask you how to get into Monte Vista, but I never got around to it. And I think that like, I mean, because I definitely was there with intention and curiosity. And there came a time where I was like, well, I can't just interview all of Monte Vista. It's not a Monte Vista podcast.
Right.
So I had to make an effort to have Kellen and then have Rakim, and slowly everybody got on. But like, but yeah, so it's interesting. I talked to Molly a little bit about this as well, and because I've known Molly for like 7 years now. We just realized it during the interview, and it was like it was cool. But yeah, like one of the things that is you go to like spaces like Night Gallery and all of those, and those are nice spaces. They have great work. That there's nothing against them, but a lot of the people that are networking in there are that I realized at one point was just like people that know each other from work, right? They're adjuncts or whatever, and a lot of the community seems inaccessible because people kind of know each other from things like that, right? So it is really interesting, I guess, the idea of seeking out spaces, because like, from day one, you and Carl, like no one was ever like, oh, this is like a clique that like you're not welcome into until you're in. Like I never felt like that. Well, I was just like one day I was in.
Yeah, well, I think that I think that, you know, you can't like you have to just find a place. You have to find the place where people are nice to you.
Yeah.
I mean, and you will go, like if you go to enough stuff and you're out and around enough, you'll find like that's how Katya Uvitsky, who I'm sorry, Katya, I pronounced your last name wrong. I know I did. But she, so her and her husband, Sean Noyce, they run a place called Noyce Projects in Hollywood. And then she also is a member of TSA. But I met her because I went to see a show at Noyce, and she was gallery sitting, and we just started chatting, and I was like, showed her my work, and we talked for like like half an hour or something. No. We'd never met before, but she was just really nice and actually interested. And I was like, oh, like we're cool. You know, she was interested and engaged. And I think that if you can, I mean, it's sort of like, I guess like dating or whatever, where you're like, is this person interested in me? And also sometimes it does take a few times too, where you maybe meet somebody and they're like, whatever. And then you see them at something later or in a different social situation. Yeah. So I think that's like you were saying with some places where it's more inaccessible because people know each other because of their jobs or whatever. You know, you'll get involved in one thing and that'll tie to another thing. And then eventually, you know, you kind of all these threads start getting tied together.
Yeah, and it is interesting to think about that because that is distinctly an MFA grad scene, right? The adjunct hustle and all of those things, and it is it's a different kind of like they're very. I mean, it sounds dumb to say, but they're just very academic about art, you know. and that's fine. That's fine. You know, I definitely don't begrudge anybody that comes on the show because I love that shit too, right? And wants to talk about that. But I do feel like that is part of the intimidation, right? Like if you, like, I mean, I can hang, but if when I wasn't where I'm at now, I didn't feel like I could. I was very self-conscious about MFA and all of that, not having one. In fact, it wasn't until like recently that it was Jamie. So it was definitely after 2016 that Jamie that convinced me that I didn't need to go.
Yeah.
You know,
well, we're in the club, the no MFA club.
No, so. I know, but I didn't know you then, you know, when I was stressing all of or maybe I knew you, but I didn't know that about you. But but that's an example right there. Like someone would look at you and maybe not know that you have a BFA and just assume that you do because of where you are at. You are somewhat, I don't know if Track 16 officially, like, are you represented by Track 16? So such a loose relationship.
It's very loose. I mean, so like Sean shows my work. I'm on the list of artists that they show, but they don't officially represent people as far as, you know, like.
That's fair enough. I mean, I don't know how these fucking things work anyway.
That's the
art world that I'm not part of. But yeah, I mean, and then the other thing is like I feel like in that realm, like when you're going into school, there's just this idea of one of the things that the podcast has been good to me in learning is this idea that like people recognize effort, you know, like most people probably don't listen to the show that still show me like deference because I do it, you know, not because they're afraid that I'm going to talk shit about them or anything like that, or not because they even want to be on the show because they don't listen, but just because there's like, oh, this is a person that's out here hustling. And I think that when people see that, like that goes a long way. You know, I mean, that's probably why I got in.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I think people want to see that. I also just feel like there's this whole, I mean, which is totally fine, and people can be like this if they want, but there's this whole thing in the art world about like serious, like being serious. Yeah. And like you said, with like the academic talk and everything. And okay, like there is obviously more than two ways to look at every piece of art, but you can look at it in this like super academic way where you really like, you know, like analyze it and talk about all the like cultural implications and how the society that it came out of and blah, 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 blah. And then you can just be like, also, I covered a chair in stuffed animal fur.
Yeah.
that's it. Like, really, it's like there is this base level of, you know, I cut up 800 pieces of paper, but then you could also be like, these 800 pieces of paper like have all this blah 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 meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to like live in the world where both of these things, like the simplest and silliest explanation, exists in context with the academic, like very deep explanation. Those two things just are both alive at the same time. And I think ignoring, I hate it when I go to a show, it's like, I'm literally making this up. I did not see this. So if it happened, sorry, everyone. But you see, like, I don't know, something that looks like a human finger hanging out of a wall. And then it's the only piece in the gallery. It's just a finger coming out of the wall. And you're like,
that's just kind of dope, though.
I mean, but you could be like, finger.
Yeah.
But then you like pick up the artist or the whatever, the paperwork in the gallery, and it's like some long, heady statement about like all the meanings of, and no one ever just says a sentence like, there's a finger sticking out of the wall.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that what you've done, or the gallery or the artist, they all know.
Yeah.
There's a finger hanging out of the wall. Funny, hilarious. What is that? It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. But then they're like they're trying to, they want you to ignore that so you can like focus on this like hyper academia situation.
Yeah. I agree with you in that. Like one time I did a ceramics show for Made in LA, and I didn't write a thing, and I just didn't like, but people were outraged. Like fucking artists were upset. And I was like, okay. But it definitely happened because I didn't have enough time to sort of put that together. So like, I can understand the frustration with that, but also like, it wasn't my top priority because I didn't want to fucking explain the show to you, not because it's a basic ceramic show.
Sure.
The show was called Wares. Like I think you fucking get it. But someone wants to have, but I think that's part of a thing of like, because it wasn't academics that were complaining. It was like people, this was in at the brewery. So it wasn't academics. It was like just people that were casually just walking by, people I didn't know. And they were like, I want to know more about the show. And I get that. I appreciate them wanting to know more. But to some degree, I also feel like they wanted to know whether or not they were right.
Sure. And I will also say, like, I'm not, I like academic writing. Some of it, I think it's really interesting.
Good at it too,
and I will also say that it is really, really wonderful as an artist to have someone write something about your work that sounds intelligent.
Yeah.
And that's a really lovely thing, and which I don't want to like discount that at all, because like even when I guess it's just the whole thing is like whatever, all art is this like microcosm of the world in and of itself, and so like the silliest nonsense, most nonsensical parts of it are there, and then the most heady academic parts are also there. Oh yeah, and I have no problem with that. I also didn't feel like it was my first time curating. I wasn't like, oh my God, people are, my standpoint. I understand what you're saying, that like, yeah, people want to have stuff written about them, but I'm pretty sure motherfuckers wouldn't have been like, oh, I'm going to quote this guy. Right. Yeah. For that show. So, but I also like, that it was a point of contention for like, people's expectations, which I'm fine with, like I'm not hung up on it. I tell the story not to say that someone else was wrong or that I was wrong or anything like that, but more like it just wasn't priority number one for me in terms of like communicating, like the academic side wasn't why I did the show. Sure, yeah. And so the fact that people were frustrated with the show, not that it was like a huge thing, people still like the show, but that level of like, that desire for access into the thinking is something that
I've gotten used to not being there because it never really comes up. Like you don't go to critique someone at their opening, right?
Right.
So for me, I was just like, you know, and I was like, hey, motherfucker, I didn't put myself in the show. You know, like I curated someone and I did something and I didn't even feature myself. Like, give me a break.
Well, I think sometimes too, I mean, I think sometimes too, it depends, like this concept of like organizer and or curator, like what is what? Because like when I lived in Austin, I did, I worked at a space where I would put shows together, but I didn't consider myself a curator. I was more like an organizer. I'm like, I'm organizing this show, and then other people like are gonna help hang it. And you know, I'm not writing. It's not like my vision. It's more like we have a space. We want some art. This will be a good show that people will come to. These people are cool. It wasn't really. And so I think when you're coming at it more from like you're an organizer and you want to put up a show that looks good and people are happy with and whatever. You're not sitting there like really thinking about like putting a curatorial statement out there.
My curatorial statement,
it makes it about you too. When you're like, I'm the curator and here's my statement of, well, I brought all the, and
if you were at the show, here's my curatorial statement. Okay. I'm looking at the camera right now. I don't think ceramics that are utilitarian suck. Done. I think they're a valid art form.
I think they're all. I also think utilitarian ceramics they're so inexpensive and it's amazing. Like people put so much insane work into making ceramics. I hate making ceramics. It's so hard. It's horrible. It's like
it's a nightmare. It's my least favorite thing to work with, but I love it because I know how hard it is to make.
Ceramics are amazing and they're too hard to make. And people are like, here, this mug is $30. And I'm like, did that take you like 40 years? Because I know it did. And like bad shit happened. And like there's a lot of turmoil inside of this object. And you were just like
all of that anxiety, just throwing it in the wheel.
Mean, it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to make ceramics.
Dude, you just so that things don't explode. And then like you got to worry about destroying other people's shit in your kiln. Oh, god damn.
Or just like you get through the bisque firing and it gets fucked up in the glaze firing. Ugh.
Yeah.
Or you have to do like 3 glaze firings and like you just like
Did you watch that show Blown Away on Netflix?
I didn't.
The glass blowing show.
Oh, wait, was that the competition one? You know what?
That one was fucking great.
I feel like
love that
I watched most of it and I didn't make it to the end for some reason.
The end is the end of that first season is so great.
I feel like I forgot to keep watching it, which sounds stupid.
By the way, this teddy bear is nuzzling the shit out of my back.
That's very nice.
It's like, ew.
I put you in the pink chair.
I kind of put myself in here because there's no way I was going to be able to sit with that.
No, I needed the horse.
Yeah, you needed the horse.
But yeah.
Well, and anyway, the reason I brought that show up, and it's fucking great. Go watch it. It really is like, there are valid critiques in there. Like the criticism section of that shit is actually pretty solid, and the conceptual conceits that win out, and especially in that first season, are fucking great. I mean, even though it's like a little like the person that wins may not be the most charismatic person in the whole place, but I like him. You know, and I like him because their work is fucking good at the end. You know, like that totally. they do an installation at the end. And she fucking nails it. Oh, I gave away who it is. I was trying to keep it vague.
I literally won't remember.
No, but I'm spoiling it for my audience, and now they're never going to listen to this podcast
I feel
again.
Like everybody needs to
just chill the fuck out.
Yeah, about spoiler. Because, okay, look, if a story is good enough, if somebody already told you the end, if the story is good enough, you will not give a shit that you already know the end.
Yeah, I was going to reference, that's what happened to me with the first season of Game of Thrones.
Oh.
But
you can go to Monte Vista and talk to those people about that. Not me, because I don't know.
You're not for dragons. You're not into a show that was popular.
I never watched it and don't care.
No, I was just reminded because like I was talking about the ending, but the ending of the show itself is actually not very popular. But the ending of the first season is like there's a huge spoiler.
Oh,
I knew it, and I still watched it, and that first season was pretty good.
I mean, I think that's
so. I think you're right.
It's like not that I'm not a big reader now because my eyes hurt.
Okay.
At the end of the day, when I would normally like go to read, I'm like so tired from just looking up close at crap all day long. Everything is swimming and then I fall asleep. Anyhow, but I could read the same. I mean, there's books that I've read like 50 times.
Oh yeah.
And because I love the way the story, I love the moments in the book and I love the way the story is created. I don't care. I don't need to be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but I mean, I think a book is also a little bit different because the way that you build the story in your head and you visualize it. I can definitely get behind that. I also rewatch movies. So I mean, your point is solid.
Yeah, I just feel like people get so.
Y'all can comment if you think we're wrong, but we're gonna spoil 6 movies from now on, from the rest of the episode.
I can't spoil any movies because I never watch. I've like never not seen anything.
But yeah, I don't know. What I had brought up something and I forgot.
I don't know, but what it did make me actually think of is another thing that's interesting about the Artist Conversation podcast that Michael Shaw does, because he talks a lot about, or not a lot, but he does mention in the show, like how he does it for free. And like like he'll also call for help a lot. Be like, hey, I need somebody to help me out just like a few hours a week. Do you want to help? Are you a listener? Can you help? Email me. Like that kind of stuff. He's very transparent. I mean, I think that's what I actually like about him is he's very transparent and he tries to.
He's a peer or at least a colleague, so I got respect.
To get people to be transparent, and it's such a funny. It can be painful sometimes to hear him trying to get be transparent because the art world is opaque and no one wants it to be transparent. And like even people that like people that I know that I'm pretty close to or friends with, I would never be like, so like how much did you sell out of that show? Like, I want to know, but I would never like. Or,
I think I asked you that.
Or I would ask, and they wouldn't tell me. And there's like certain people that would tell, or people would be like, "Oh, like how much money do you make off your restoration versus your art?" And that's usually, I mean, up until like last year, it would be normally like I would make 80% of my income off restoration. But last year it was better, which is great. But then probably wouldn't publicly say what those numbers are, mostly because sometimes I'm like, that actually is really embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from my end, it's embarrassing how much effort I put into something I make no money off.
Right. But I mean, but that's,
but I think that also kind of goes to what I'm interested in. Like, I'm interested in this shit. Like, why does fucking Molly do what she does? Like, why do you do what you do? Mm-hmm. Like, why do you run Monte Vista? Like, why? Why the fuck do you do that? No, seriously, why do I do this? Like, why? But
I think so. I also think about this too. And I think, I don't know. I think, so specifically for Monte Vista, I wanted to get involved in something because I needed to. When I came here, I had such a hard time figuring out like what my place was supposed to be here, mm-hmm. like how I fit into the whole, like the enormous landscape. Because I think that the thing about LA that is like difficult and bewildering is it does have all these aspects of the art world. Like it has the galleries where people go to the gallery and they're like, can I purchase this piece for $15,000? And then the gallerist is like, no, because you're not the right person.
I know.
Your money's no good here.
Wow.
Like, and I'm like, what? Yeah, what? Yeah. Like there's tons of that happens all the time. And I'm not in that. Like, that's not relevant to me specifically, but like that's here. And then, there's just all the different like tiers and types of spaces that exist here. And I like really struggled to figure out like where do I fit? And in Austin, there was at the time that I was there, the golden days of the Austin art scene before it got so expensive, people couldn't live there. I had this community of people who just would like be there to do anything for no money, because it was fun or interesting or good, or we just wanted we wanted there to be more art. We wanted there to be more of everything. And so we just did the thing because we're like, we have the time and we have the energy to do it. And when I came here, I couldn't find, not that it didn't exist. I just didn't know where to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the places that I had looked before I figured out Monte Vista, it just wasn't, I was like, this isn't it. Like, this isn't quite it. I don't know. And then I met Carl.
Oh, it's over.
Yeah. Well, and that was like the hilarious thing because it was.
That was like me meeting you.
That's literally what happened was I met Carl and that was it. And I mean, even though Carl's in TSA, like there was just this, it was funny too, because even though I'd already been in LA for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, something like that. When I met Carl, and I met him because they were trying to do, so TSA and Monte Vista will occasionally do exchange shows with like other collectives. So there's a collective in Austin called Icosa that didn't exist when I lived there, but I knew a bunch of people who were in it. And they were going to do an exchange show with TSA and Monte Vista. And they shipped all their work to LA and it all got stolen.
Whoa.
Yeah, it got stolen out of somebody's car. Anyway, and so that they were supposed to be like, you know, people were coming from Austin, like to LA to for this show, and the work was stolen. They looked, you know, whatever. They like, it was a whole sad, stupid, long story. But what they ended up doing was being like, who do we know that's connected to Austin that lives in LA? And people knew me and a couple of other people. And then the collective did like bring some work with them on, you know, on the plane that they could put up. But they needed more because, you know, most of the big stuff got stolen. And so they contacted me and they were like, do you have any work? Do you want to be in this show? It's like right now, you know, it was like 3 days, 3 days. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I ended up, Carl, I didn't have a car. Like, I think, yeah, I didn't have a car at the time, or I didn't have a car during the day. Like Rick had the car to go to work and I was working. Oh, my studio was at my house at the time. Mm. And so like, I couldn't go anywhere. And so I was like, I can't drop my work off until like after 7 p.m. Is that okay? And Carl emails me back and he's like, what are you doing? I'm going to come pick you up. And I was like, you don't know where I live. Because like in LA, you don't just offer to pick people up.
No.
Because like you could find out.
Unless you're
like,
Carl.
They're like, I live in Irvine.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. I'm like, you don't know where I live. He's like, I don't care. I'm coming to pick you up. And we literally never met. Uh-huh. And so he like picks me up at like 8:30 a.m. And we went to Best Buy, we went to Home Depot, we went to the liquor store, and then we like went to Bendix and we like hung the show with a few other people. And we just like had a day.
Nice.
Me and Carl. And then I was like, okay, like this place makes sense to me. This makes sense to me. And then I met Emily.
Through him?
You know, actually...
Emily Blythe Jones, who's been on the show.
Yeah.
And by the way, just so that people have a context, we are literally in the same building where I recorded the Carl Barada episode. It's also a gallery. I can actually see into his studio because the doors are open. Yes. So that people know that the family is tight. Yeah.
Gallery also, the place where we barely close our doors. Yeah. So, but that's how I think maybe I may have like I knew I was following Emily on Instagram before and I had wanted to meet her and I kept going. She was in all these group shows and I would like go to the group show to try to meet her and she wouldn't be there. And then I would like go to the one 2 weeks later and be like, where is she? Yeah. But I finally ended up meeting her. It was at one of those, Habib, who
515 gallery.
Yeah, who is now at 515, but used to run a gallery called Post. Used to do these things called kamikaze shows. Yeah, and so like he would one show a day or something like that for a month. All crazy. So Emily was in this one show. It was about cakes. Anyway, it was one of those kamikaze shows, and so it was like up for just 3 hours or something like that. And I got there and I got the times wrong, and so I was there like 5 minutes before it was closing, and Emily at the time was making the these cast arms with food in their hands, and she was carrying these arms, and I'm like, that's her. And I like ran up to her and I'm like, look, I know you're trying to leave, obviously, with your work, but I need to introduce myself to you, which I don't think she remembers that encounter, but it felt extremely awkward and I felt super weird about it. So I think I actually had met her then. The whole thing happened with Carl, and then he told Emily after he and I spent the day together, like doing shit, like having to go buy a TV monitor for a piece and all that, you know. It's like, this person's cool. And Monte Vista.
And if you get the thumbs up from Carl, you're royalty.
Right. And Monte Vista needed extra help at the time too. And I think that's kind of the thing too, is most of the time, I mean, like sometimes you come in and it's not the right time. And so, you know, I can't just say to everyone like, oh, you could just try to do this and it'll work. But because sometimes it takes a long time too. Like to get involved with the space. Like sometimes you could like go to, like right now we just got a ton of new members at Monte Vista.
Oh yeah, it's not limited supply. I'm just saying, yeah.
So we don't, you know, it's not like we, you know, we're not like, but there are times where like when I came into Monte Vista needed something, and it was needed something that I could help with. And so that's
like retail, it's seasonal.
Right.
You know, like there's you got to wait until the turnover rate.
Yeah, you got to wait for the right time. Or like sometimes, you know, even with like shows and stuff, like you might meet someone and you're like, oh, like that person was cool and they liked your work. And then like 5 years later, you hear from them and they're like, oh, I thought of you and I want to put you in a show. But sometimes it takes 5 years because they're not ready for it yet.
Yeah, it's a weird thing out here. It's also weird, like how you know, because I have, well, one of the things that you said that was funny, because we were talking about the fun times I've been having on dating apps, and and I was complaining that like you don't really know someone until you actually meet them, right? So you have this like fake idea of what they are, and then you have to confront the reality of it. So there's like maybe even more disappointment than going on a regular date. But you were saying that it was something that also applies to me in that context, which is that I don't get a lot of people that aren't artists. Like that's part of the burden of being an artist. Like,
oh, like you literally like do not get them.
Yeah, I don't. I don't.
Just making sure.
Oh no, I've never slept with anyone that's not an artist.
Actually, it's funny because
no, I'm kidding.
No, but really though, like that's when I rarely meet people who aren't either an artist or arts adjacent, and when I do, I'm kind of bewildered.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do with it. And so that's like, I don't know, that's just sort of a funny, like we hang together, the artists.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard to really kind of relate to people that have like the 9 to 5 and want to do that
also think you're kind of stupid too, because you're working for free all the time to do dumb stuff. And it's like, why are you doing a 12-hour day? And you're like, well, I worked 6 hours and then for 6 hours, I did an insane project with my studio mates. Yeah. They're like, but why? And you're like, because it was fun.
I think that's the new, what's my thesis is about the but why. But why are you doing this? Seriously, like, I don't know why I really don't know why I keep doing this. I'm making literally the most, in the past 4 years, the most that I've made off of my Patreon, all combined is like $400, which is a lot because it's $100 a year. But, you know, honestly, like it does not cover my time.
But is your goal? I mean, okay. I obviously, yeah, it would be nice to me. I mean, I guess this is the whole thing. Like when I don't know, my parents are very practical people. And so like when I was going to get my BFA or whatever, my mom was like, don't you think you maybe should like double major in fine art and graphic design? And I was like, I guess. And then I tried to do graphic design and I hated it so much. Oh, yeah. And so I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But my mom was really, really serious about basically like, planning how are you going to make money? Yeah. Like you need to be able to live. And I also wanted to like, not that, because I do sell my work. I'm not like a crazy purist or anything like that. But I wanted to be able to kind of do whatever I wanted with my work and not be dependent on money from selling my work. because I wanted to do whatever I wanted. And like you get into this thing, which is accidentally happened to me, where you're doing something and people like it, and then people buy it, and then people are expecting more of that from you. And some of it you'll do, but then some of it you're just like, well, I'm not, I haven't done that in a while, or I'm not gonna.
Was it the bunnies?
Oh no, I love the bunnies. I would totally make more bunnies. I actually am making more bunnies.
What was it that got you pigeonholed? What got you Debora code is what I call that.
Oh, I mean, what was actually interesting was for years and years and years I made, like before ceramics, I made like work on paper. I did a lot of like transfer prints with like photos that I did or stuff I photocopied or, I used acetone works good. Lacquer thinner. Lacquer thinner is great.
Yeah.
For transfer prints. And so then I would like do drawings on top of those and, kind of like collage stuff or like sewing on paper.
I had my Xerox phase too.
Artist books, like altered books, stuff like that.
I think it's very generational though.
Maybe so. But
it would be interesting if any Zoomers start making Xerox art.
But when I came to LA, I don't know if it was the way that because I was still doing some paper stuff when I was in Austin, but something about coming here, like all the other or most of the other elements of the work any work that I was doing that weren't ceramic sort of just fell away.
And that's what people were upset about.
And well, that's what people wanted.
More of that.
But sometimes now, like there will be a piece that I'll post that's old, and people will be like, "Oh, are you ever gonna do like a series on that or anything?" And I'll be like, "Maybe," but it might take like 10 years. Because I'm not good at I don't know. I'm not good at just because there's demand doesn't mean I'm gonna do it. Like there's this piece with it's squirrels eating Cheetos. It's these two ceramic squirrels, and they're like eating these Cheetos, and they have the Cheeto fuzz is the wrong word.
Powder.
Dust. Cheeto dust.
Dust is
They
better.
have it all over their faces and all over their little hands, and they're just like going nuts. And it's hilarious. I mean, like I love that piece. It was funny to make. I actually dumped out an entire bag of Cheetos and found the smallest ones.
Okay.
And then I coated them all in acrylic.
So their Cheeto cord.
Yeah. And so they're actual real Cheetos.
It's almost like you're petting a real cat there.
I know. I've been petting the horse. It's
the horse. The fuzzy part of the horse's leg,
keeping me calm,
is the armrest of the chair. I'm trying to explain it to you for when you listen later.
Thank you.
So you can visualize it.
But yeah, the Cheeto squirrels. Whenever I repost them, people are like, "Oh, are you ever gonna make any more of those?" And it would be fun to do a series of those.
But maybe you feel like you've already got it
done.
But
like,
you already went there.
Am I gonna? I mean, if like, so much of what I do is like based on what I find. If for some reason someone like brought in a big box of really appropriate squirrel figurines that would all be perfect to have little snacks, maybe I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. It's hard for me to actively like seek out, like, even if I know people would buy it, I'm just like, ugh. And doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't, that's not a way to run a business.
What do you know about the Seattle art scene?
Very little.
Very little. So you're not doing your research. You're not ready to hit the ground running and be like, I'm gonna Monta Vista the shit out of this place.
No, I'm kind of gonna do a thing. Like, there's kind of like just well, first of all, I'm taking enough restoration work with me from clients in California that I have like a good few months of work.
Can you ship stuff?
Yeah, it's all smalls. Smalls that I'll do and then I'll ship back to people. And then there's some stuff that I just like want to try. So I'm kind of in this thing. I'm going to try to like make more space for just like my studio time so I can do some stuff that I've just been wanting to try. Or to see how it looks and not really, I don't know, not worry about like shows or whatever at the moment. It'll probably change. Really, I'll say that. And what's going to end up happening is somebody's going to be like, oh, hey, group show, another group show. And then I'll be like, and then I'll just have to make work for that instead of spending my focus time.
Do you submit and apply to stuff?
No.
No, you're just known and met enough people that you get invited.
Yeah, I've just been like I've been like really weirdly lucky with how everything.
No, I wouldn't say luck.
Well,
You're out here, man. You fucking hustle.
I make efforts, but I don't feel like I make like any really intense efforts. Sometimes I'm like, wow, if I would have made an intense effort, I wonder how much, like how well I could do if I was just like really, really focused. But
yeah.
But more or less, I just like kind of do more or less what I want for my work or what I think is going to be good. And that makes me happy. And I'm happy that people buy it. 'Cause I don't want to have to I don't know. I don't want to keep my like tons and tons of my own work. Like I like the fact that it can go away.
It's voluminous, and it's not like you can just put them in a flat file.
Right. Yeah, it takes up space.
And even a fucking flat file is huge.
Well, yeah, like that's the thing where people, painters, and then it's like, are you gonna, you have to unstretch stuff at a certain point because you can't fit that many stretcher bars, and so you don't have to, but I feel like I have to have a way to like get rid of the things I make, because I don't want to have them forever. Like they're not, once I've made them, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
it's your it's your version of Epstein's fantasy of like, seeding the world with your art. I'm sorry. Was that not, is that problematic?
That was not where I thought that was going to go, but
really? Did you forget who you were talking to?
but I'm like, but also the application of the theory is, although then again, I'm like, you know what?
Yes, but less creepy, Javier.
I do sometimes think about how it is cool to know that people all over the world like have
it's fucking awesome.
It is when I do start thinking about it, I was like, oh, that actually is cool. I'm
trying to get into that mindset because I'm definitely trying to like, I'm not ready to get rid of pieces, but you're probably going to see me being like trying to hustle on Instagram and be like, hey, anybody want to pay me $10? I've become an old man and I've sold it out.
Right. Well, I mean,
you heard the part where I was like, I'm ready to sell out.
Yeah, no, I think you have to like,
of Emily's episode.
You have to like, it's nice to give, to be able to like, for people to love your work and for people to own your work. And I think that's awesome. But I also just I don't know. I don't want it to be like I don't want it to be my primary income stream because I don't want to have to like get into this thing where I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, it puts pressure on it.
And I have since I have this other skill, like if I didn't have the restoration skill, I might, change my mind on that. But like doing restoration gives me a lot of freedom with my artwork. And that's kind of always how I perceived that my life would work. Like I always assumed I would be doing something else that would make it like give me the space to do what I wanted with my artwork.
I always assumed I would have like a regular day job that was not that was more what we had back in the 90s. Like work that actually paid you.
Sure. Well, yeah. No, I always
and didn't take up every second of your fucking existence.
Well, I always thought I would be a teacher. Like I was like, oh, I'll teach college. But like that's fell
like
apart. I mean, like that fell apart completely.
Yeah.
Like, and I was so lucky that like the whole situation with now we only hire adjuncts started happening like I applied to a bunch of graduate schools like right after undergrad, got rejected from like all of them, or I think I got waitlisted on a couple and then rejected from the rest. And then I was just like, okay, this is dumb. But then, a couple of years later, I had friends that were graduating from MFA programs and they're like, I teach at 5 universities and I drive 800 miles.
Dude, that's what I like. They're basically like fucking club soccer coaches.
And yeah. And I was just like, well, this is crazy. Like, I don't want to do that. I always had I was thinking of like the person who was my advisor in college. She was like, she like got her MFA and then she got a job as a professor teaching painting at a college and she worked there for 40 years and then retired. And she had this job that allowed her to have like at least 2 days a week of studio time.
Yeah.
And the summers off. And I was like, oh, that's what I'll do. But instead, like I do restoration. And then when I'm like, oh, like when I had my show last year, for months, I was just like, I'm sorry, I can't finish your project. I'm busy. I'm like trying to make artwork. Leave me alone.
Nice. Yeah. That I think is a nice serendipitous thing that you fell into with the restoration. We covered it last episode, so you don't have to get into it. We have another episode with Debora if you guys want to hear more of her story, and how she uses serendipity in her practice. It's also funny because since I do this so much, when we were sitting on our chairs but we didn't have the mics on, it was tripping me out because I'm like, oh wait, the mics aren't on.
Right. No, I know. I thought that was sort of funny too, because it's like it's like we're like pretending to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe we're still pretending. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, until I make money off of this, some would argue that I am.
I mean, I don't know.
No, I know. You don't have to feel bad.
Oh, I do want to say, I'm just like one last thing about you not making money off your podcast. It's really not about that, but it's just this whole thing I've gotten, like, especially in the last few years, gotten kind of like obsessed with, because people, which is now hilarious since I'm leaving, and my clients for restoration are like, no.
Mm-hmm.
But people would be like, why don't you train someone? Why don't you train someone? And I'm like, look, I'm just trying to be an artist.
Yeah.
I do this so I can be an artist. I don't want an employee. I don't want somebody bothering me. I don't want to have to tell someone they did a bad job on that and the dots don't look right. I just do this so I can do this other thing.
Yeah.
And this whole like idea of like growth, constant growth, it's insane.
Well, you have to keep up with inflation now.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. I'm just so like, people are just like, well, you start a business so you can grow.
No, I get it.
And I'm like, literally, I'm totally against that. I am totally against you start a business so you can grow. I started a business so I could have something that would like allow me to be an artist.
Yeah, that's
and
basically
that's the goal. So that's what I was gonna say. Like with your podcast, maybe it is one of your goals to make money, but like, what are the other goals?
Oh,
like,
no. Look, there was a very serious thought process that went into starting the Up Again, because it was like, the last time I did it, I was so burnt out. This time, and so I was like afraid for that, and this time I have like so many episodes so far ahead, I don't even think of the show some weeks, which is much healthier. Like, and in terms of getting that set up, the main reason I did it is because the main reason I started doing it again is because I couldn't look at what I had done so far and say it wasn't worth it.
Right.
Like, I am definitely not where I was when I started. I am definitely a different person internally. I've learned a lot. I have lost a lot of illusions about who artists are and what kind of people are artists. I think I have a lot more of a realistic understanding that they are fucking annoying. They are, and I don't say that with resentment. This is just the reality of like, I share some of these qualities with people that fucking drive me crazy. And the things that they do that drive me crazy are things that I would possibly do in the same situation, in terms of like being controlling of your persona and all of that. But yeah, ultimately, like, I don't think that I got into Monte Vista exclusively because I do the show, but I think I just think that I have built enough that it felt worth it to keep going, and the social element of it is also, it's kind of like, I'm the kind of person that I force myself to socialize because otherwise I forget. Because I will go into that studio hole or that fucking hole of doing whatever it is that I'm doing, and then I'll come up and I'll be like, oh my God, I feel so lonely. Hey guys, do you guys want to hang out? So then doing the show is just a way of doing this. But I think that there's like something really intimate to doing this with strangers, because first of all, you get to know them pretty quick. Like, are they Are they an asshole and they're not going to say anything? And then you're just like, fuck you. And you're like, blah, 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 blah.
Well, I mean, it's going to be hard too because there's so many introverts in the art world, and so it's just like you're literally like I'm guessing like a lot of people's worst nightmare. And also, we let you into Monte Vista because we're like, this man will work for free.
Yeah,
no, that's not really why. No, we just all of us knew you.
Yeah,
like, Javier, he's cool.
I made it hard for you guys to not let me in.
Well, I mean, like we knew you. And, we're like, he's cool. He like does stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have to say, I'm really enjoying. I've been sitting in a horse chair this whole time.
Stroking his chin.
And I've been petting him, and it's really nice. This is great. This is a great chair.
You should make an ad for it. And put it in the middle of a podcast at the very end. And I think on that note, no, he's not for sale. It does look like he's like sneaking up like behind you, and he's like, oh. All right. Well, thank you so much. I am going to miss you. We'll talk a little bit more about that off air because it might involve some crying.
No crying.
But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be in touch because I'm not going to let you not contact me.
Oh, everyone can find me on the Instagram.
On the Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then anything. So what's your Instagram?
Oh, my Instagram handle is ZebraZorb. That's the way you find me. That's my most updated thing. I don't have anything coming up, but if people are in Seattle or if people live in Seattle or they're visiting Seattle, they want to say hi, come find me.
Okay.
Or also other people invite me back to LA. I will come.
You will come?
I will come
to LA. All right.
For visits, not to stay permanently. Preferably when it's not on fire.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get an invite from me because I don't have room for two people. But
well, but if you invite me to something, I might be like, oh, I'll find accommodations because this sounds cool.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try to throw something, big party and invite you. But in the meantime, we got your party, your farewell party. So I'll be ready for that. I'll try not to get too drunk because that's the reputation I have. All right. I don't have that reputation, by the way.
He does.
He does. We just don't tell him. Yeah. All right. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for coming and being on the show again, and for being a good art friend.
And it's now 92 degrees in here, so we have to go.